Hello, I'm here on the YouTube channel, and we're going to do a collective reading for the new moon in Virgo. What can we say about a new moon in Virgo? I'm not even sure. Welcome. We'll see what comes out in terms of cards and things like that. We're going to do a tarot reading for the collective. Basically, I'm in a bit of a energy as soon as I kind of started sitting down at the table and considering recording this reading. I've started to get into this energy. It's an uneasy feeling, which is kind of strange because I just kind of celebrated. I just had dinner with a bunch of people and I felt really great, and I came home and I felt really great from just having a fun time and great food and nice laughs. And then I came and sat down at the table and I just had this kind of overwhelming, uneasy feeling. I say overwhelming, like it's drawing out of this. It feels like there's something that used to feel certain that feels uncertain now. That's the energy. We'll see what it's going to be about, and I'll just get some cards for that, and we'll do a reading. When I talk about new moon in Virgo, just acknowledging the energy that we're in. If this is coming at you, this reading, at a different time, that's okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's the timing, but as I'm recording this, we're coming into a new moon in Virgo. New moons are these times when we don't know. It's darkness. There's no light reflecting off of the moon at all, really. And what we're getting is basically the illusion that there is no moon. At the same time, there's something to be said for the fact that we know the moon is still there and that we just don't see it because we know enough about the moon and where it is to know that it's still very much there, and this is just a part of things. So new moons are times when we get to kind of experience that reminder that there are things that we don't know, and it's a natural part of things to not know. And just because we don't know doesn't mean there isn't something to do for that. Doers, Virgo energy. What can I do? What am I going to do about this? What am I going to think about this? What am I going to say? What am I going to write down on a piece of paper? What am I going to send as a message or whatever? Kind of getting this contemplating energy, especially in this time right now, that there's something unknown, and there's an uneasiness with the unknown despite an understanding that not knowing is part of things. So, of course, we're looking at a tarot reading, so of course we're dealing with the unknown. We're looking at the intuitive space. And so feel free to hang out, and we'll see what happens. I kind of have been streaming a bit less on Twitch lately. I've been super busy, so these YouTube readings are going to be a little bit more of a thing as soon as I get into a bit more of a schedule, like I used to be on streaming. So just for anybody who finds this reading who's not a part of the Twitch Tarot Lady in a Church Collective, welcome. You're welcome to join us and to hear this reading for yourself. I feel like there's a reason why anybody hears anything or sees a reading at any given time. Sometimes, I don't know if you watch a lot of YouTube readings, but I have a bit of a scroll if I'm watching it, and sometimes it'll randomly, a reading from 2 years ago will pop up from some reader I've never seen before. And I can appreciate that it's just kind of like the algorithms at work. At the same time, I can also wonder a little bit, maybe it wasn't my time to hear that message. So I feel like whenever you hear this message, hopefully it's something that can resonate with you. And welcome to the collective if you've just come in. And of course, we can always hear these readings and understand that we pick up a lot of information from other people. That's something. We pick up a lot from others, when we do interact with people, when we do all kinds of things. Like when I was just sitting at a table with a bunch of people having dinner, there would be the things that I heard and that I saw, and there would also be the things that I sensed with my intuition. And what you can know is that with anybody that you've met before, especially if it's a person, but also it applies to nature, you have an intuition for these things that gives you a lot more information, and it's just whether we trust our intuition or not. And part of the work, I think we're going to be talking, I just feel it in this reading, that uncertainty, that uneasiness. It's wondering if an intuitive kind of message is accurate, or if it's an ego thing, something like that. That's really what I'm feeling here. So let's see what we have here. Tower. Well, what a great place to start a reading. Tower. It's funny I just said that thing about ego, because it feels in this card very much like that. It's like a hanging on energy, not wanting things to fall apart. Even though it's so obvious in this card that this structure will fall apart if we stop hanging on to it. So if you're having that understanding about something, this might be a message for you. And basically what I was saying as well is that we pick up on other people's energy. So sometimes this can be really a message for like another energy that we've picked up, like almost like somebody else's kind of, we might just be reflecting, like the moon reflects the light of the sun. We might be reflecting someone else's energy into a reading. So, and there we go. Queen of Wands. And I feel like there's two more cards. Page of Swords. Both of those in reverse. There it is. Temperance in reverse. You know, I say not knowing, right? I say not knowing, but yet this person who's hanging on, this person who is like, it's almost like this person is hanging on to the tower here in this card as if like it's very sure. It's a very sure thing that if I let go of this, it's going to fall down. And when we're contemplating whether or not something is an intuitive response or an ego response, like there's a difference between these two things, but they kind of come similarly, like in these kind of unknown, impulsive or, inspiration. Like these words are all kind of very similar. Colin is contemplating a visit, but he's being deterred by he's just standing on the mixing board, which is right there. But he wants to come and say hi. Okay, let me move this. He wants to come say hi. I can't stop Colin from doing his thing. Come here, bud. You want to come up and say hi? Come say hi to the collective. He's saying he wants to say hi. But there's too many things burning on the table for him right now. He wanted to come up. He always loves the collective energy. How's it going? He's got his brand new bow tie. And it's not so brand new. He's had it for like a week, maybe now. But he's very proud of his new bow tie, I can tell. Hey? Pardon the interruption. Colin likes to be involved. He's pushing the temperance card. He's got something to say. Oh, goodness, your tail. Oh, no. Goodness, little guy. I've got to stop and I've got to start again because I noticed that it's the same thing as before where the video is out of sync with the audio. Wonder why that is. I feel like it's because I've got too many things here. Maybe try this. Got too many things going on. Is this better? I don't know why there's a delay sometimes. I think I got to start the reading again. Well, you know what? I'm not going to start it again because I've already gone through so many things, and we've got these cards, and Colin came up here, and I just noticed that my as I was looking up to see, because I couldn't see, and I just looked up at the screen, and I noticed that my hands are out of sync. Oh, now it got better. So I think whatever I did there was good. Okay. Well, we're just hanging out, I guess. What do I say? Colin came to say hi. And now whatever sticks from my memory is what was supposed to be the message, I guess. It's interesting to me that this person is very sure that this thing is going to fall apart. It really is a troubling thing, but it's like kind of like, I don't know, it's that energy of like, hold it together, you know? Like we get told a lot, this phrase, hold it together, would ya? You got to hold it together. You got to be strong. You got to keep on going, that kind of thing. And knowing that if we were to just let go or something, let loose, or even, I don't know, it just feels like this person is slowly becoming the destruction of the tower. Their hair's turning into kind of this clouds of, I guess it's debris that's falling off the tower. So that when we hang on to something that's falling apart for too long, we have this idea that if we were to let go, it would fall apart. But what we have to remember is that enough of this hanging on, if we were to continue hanging on, we become part of the destruction that's going on. This is something that's meant to fall. This is something that's meant to end, or it's meant to be torn down. You know, sometimes things are torn down because they're meant to be built back up again, just a little bit better than they once were. What's interesting to me is this person has this idea of holding on, and the longer they hold on, the more they kind of like start becoming part of the things that are falling apart. And they're also quite sure of what another energy has got going on. Like, this is not a small story. The story is about someone who can see something. So let's just say the upright cards is collective, and then this is going to be like another energy here, the energy of whatever's falling apart, I think. Let's just say that, but if you're resonating more with the other side of things, of course, you know, it's hard to tell. Whenever I do this YouTube streaming, the energy feels a lot different than it does, or it's not even streaming, recording for YouTube. It feels very different, of course, but it's like, it's almost like I have an understanding that there are so many more stories to tell, and it really does change the nature of the message. So if you do have a chance to come hang out on Twitch with us, sometimes we have big groups, but sometimes it's smaller groups, and whatever night you end up coming in on, it's usually like a Saturday, or sometimes it's a Friday, and I do stream on Sunday afternoon sometimes. It's erratic at this point, but I'll put a link up for the collective Discord, and you can join that. I'll put it in the description. Hopefully. I know how to do that. I think so. Okay. This person who is kind of holding on is very sure of a lot of things. And so my first kind of glance of things, I would say, oh yeah, that's definitely ego. Like, I can see it. You know, I can definitely see, if we're wondering about the difference between ego and intuition. What's one thing I heard is that ego is very loud and intuition whispers, and it's very quiet. And so we actually have to become very still to hear our intuition. And so whenever we're in a moment that feels chaotic, we can be almost certain that what we're drawing from is ego. Ego isn't always a bad thing. Ego is where our instincts are. Like, our instincts help us out all the time. Sometimes they tell us we're hungry, you know, and it's time to eat dinner, that kind of thing. And then other times they tell us that we know things about other people that we don't know about them actually. So this is, I think, more that side, the darker side of ego. This person seems to really understand, or at least know, they feel like they know that someone else has had more than enough opportunities to see things. Like Page of Swords and Queen of Wands. Queen of Wands is observing energy, and Page of Swords, especially in this deck, I think, is quite observatory. It's someone who's observing. Basically, they have a method for this thing. They've studied up on something, and they're feeling quite confident based on what they've learned. You know, somebody who's recently graduated from an institution, right? Somebody who's graduated in their field of study to the next level. They're ready to continue. They're ready to move forward. So it's just kind of pointing to somebody who's made a decision. Temperance. It's like this person with the Tower has put themselves in a position. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Hanged Man over here with this Temperance card like this, putting themselves in a position where, like, they know that this person has had more than enough opportunities to see them holding onto this tower, and they like that they're capable of seeing them holding onto this tower as it's falling apart. And so they kind of like, this is drawing a conclusion. Temperance. I always talk about Temperance as a card of karma because it's the things that we do. Wow. 9 of Swords. Oh, this 3 of Wands wants to come here. Wow. Okay. So it's basically this. I totally see it. It's that this tower, this person who's holding onto the tower, the hanging on person, they're basically saying, like, I know you can see me holding things together here, and I'm still here holding things together on my own, and that must mean that you're experiencing this in a place where I can't see. Right over here, down here, because this observing energy, I don't think that there's been any indication in this observing energy. Like, this person is basically it's like the other person must suffer in some other way. I don't like to talk about people like this, you know, and so I'm not saying it like, you know, this is how you feel or something. This is maybe just an idea. Like, we all get into this kind of like, it's almost in the vein of wishing ill on people. Not quite. It's more like, well, if I'm suffering or if I'm hanging on to this thing and I'm becoming, and I look at how dedicated I am to becoming this thing that's falling apart, just to hold it together in your absence kind of thing. It's basically like this thing that they're holding isn't participating in holding it together kind of thing. And the fact that they've had more than enough opportunity to see that that this tower, it's like it's being held up. It must mean that they're suffering in some other way. It must mean that they should suffer in some other way. That's Temperance, should. And when we make these judgment calls of, like, you know, what should happen, how things ought to be. Dangerous territory here. And so ego can be kind of innocent, but it can also be quite, it really does have the ability to influence who we are. 3 of Wands, waiting or looking out, wondering energy. There's a wondering. And it's almost like thinking this thought of like, well, if I'm sitting here holding this together, then I hope Or I can only imagine that they must be sitting up at night having all these thoughts and not knowing what to do. And they don't know what to do. They've seen everything. They see that everything's falling apart and they don't know what to do. But this isn't like a hidden truth that's coming out. This is what this person is experiencing as like, this is how they perceive the tower that they're holding up. That they're holding it up almost to save someone. And I see someone standing on top of a tower, and I see someone standing on top of tall buildings here. I see this big tall thing here. What I'm seeing, I think, is this idea this person has that whatever this is, that it needs this tower to be here in order to exist. And so almost like this is almost the energy of somebody who feels like they're preventing someone's fall from a great height. I don't want to see you fall from a great height. So there is like loving intention in it, or even just like kind of caring intention. Like, I don't want to see this fall apart because I don't want you to fall off of your, and I just heard the word pedestal. So this is a bit weird. Let's look into it a little bit more with these cards. I have other cards. These cards are very interesting. There's a lot of messages in there. Three of Pentacles and King of Pentacles. I'm trying to clarify this angle. Three of Pentacles under the Temperance. What I'm seeing is like, it's almost like, and again, this is all what this person is assuming, I think. What this person is assuming is going on for this person. They have quite the story built up, I think, over here of what this person or this situation is all about. And it's like there's a naivety. Like, it's like you don't even know that you're standing on the top of a tower. This is like kind of like for the things that this tower person would be saying, like, for the things that you interact with, for the things that this person interacts with, they wouldn't know what's going on. It's like willful blindness, I guess. I'm going to correct myself in that statement there. I'm going to say willful ignorance. Like only focusing on certain things so as to not recognize that they're standing on top of this structure that's being held up by another person. Now, this isn't inherently negative or positive. And it's just like having more than enough resources. You know, this is King of Pentacles, so it's like contradictory energy here. It's like you might be saying to somebody, or you might be thinking about somebody, like that they only focus on certain things, but they could be focusing on everything. They've had every opportunity to see something for what it is, yet they choose to. It's like temperance is a choice that we make, and that's what I wanted to get out of that. And what I'm saying about karma there is that we make decisions, and sometimes we make decisions because we feel like we know what's best, or we know how things ought to be. And when we look at this situation, it's almost like it ought to be different than this, and this is the contradiction that proves it, kind of thing. We try to make decisions about what ought to be. Sometimes we bump up against, other plans that are happening. There's a reason why we don't know everything. And it's so that, for the most part, we can humble ourselves in the face of someone else's actions or something else that happens, and focus on ourselves and focus on how we respond. Now, this person is just naturally holding on to this tower and focused very much, not on the fact that they're holding on, but on this story of what they're holding on to. Interesting. I'm going to clear this out, and I'm just going to kind of draw a few more cards from this deck. While I shuffle a little bit. I have a map of the world out right now. I've been sitting at this table for a few days now with this map out, and I think eventually I'm going to just be looking at it for so long that I'll memorize where all the countries are. Every once in a while somebody says a country, and I go, where is that? And I don't have a picture in my mind, so just working on that one. One of the things I observed is like Indonesia is so interesting. My eyes just go over here all the time. Like, what's going on over there? How do they hold that together? It's kind of like that tower that's falling apart image. I'm not saying Indonesia is falling apart. I don't know what's going on in Indonesia, not beyond what I can read in popular news, I guess, or hear from people. Global politics, that's kind of a good example of things that we really just can't. We have to humble ourselves to know that we don't know everything. We can't know everything. There's so much depth to learn about. You know what? There's so much depth for me to know about. If I was to go outside right now and walk down to the end of the road, there would be so much depth in that experience of mine that I could analyze it forever. And that in itself is proof enough that there's everything we encounter, from the tiny little things like walking down the street all the way to global politics, is that there's always going to be way more things that we don't know, because like we only have so much time here, and we understand our capacity for, focus down the road. We're going to be in a position much like the one we're in now, where we're able to think back 10 years ago, I was in this particular location, and what are our memories? And are we distraught with the fact that we didn't know everything there is to know about that moment 10 years ago? Sometimes people say yes to that, but I think for the most part, we'd all say it doesn't really matter that I don't know. What matters is where I am now. If anybody's curious and you've never, wow, that just kind of all fell out all at once. There's our Three of Pentacles again. And so I feel like we're getting kind of a bit of an explanation about this Three of Pentacles and Temperance right here. If anybody's curious, you just come in and you don't normally watch the Twitch stream. My style of reading, I blend kind of the tarot cards just basically as tools to just to express the messages that I get, and there's a lot of channeling that goes on. That's what it would be called, channeling. Three of Pentacles. Okay, so the Three of Pentacles was kind of being scolded in the past spread. That there's somebody that you might be saying they're choosing to focus on particular things, and you can see from a mile away that what they choose to focus on prevents them from seeing where you are. And that could very well be the case. And I think this is just confirming what I was just randomly talking about. Is we can't focus on everything. We do have to choose certain things to focus on. there's definitely a road we have to go down. I mean, if we try to take it all in, everything in a conscious kind of way, I'm going to know everything that's happening right now in this moment. We'd just sit there and we wouldn't be going anywhere because we'd be afraid to miss something. So I feel like this is kind of like the other side of the story. The other side of the story is that if we were to choose pick every single last flower, and maybe even just smell every single flower as I walk from here to the end of the road, if I was to go to every person's garden and smell every single person, every flower in every person's garden, or every house's garden, then, I don't know if I'd ever make it to the end of the road. There's so many flowers out right now. At least not before it started to interfere with my ability to take care of myself, If I made it a mission of mine that I'm going to smell every single flower that I walk. We make these decisions to do that for other reasons. It's kind of like our physical experience, pentacles in this world. We have to make choices. We have to choose what we're going to do, what we're going to focus on. Now, this person's choice, I'm going to tell you, Temperance card is still here. Yes, there's still karma. There's karma for everything. And so this person is still going to have to take responsibility for the decisions they've made to focus on what they're focusing on. But let's not tell the story as if it was ever possible for them to walk down the road and sniff every single flower in every house's garden kind of thing. They would have to choose, maybe one or two flowers because they were very pretty looking and just pay attention to a few things. Hierophant is commitment, and it's also philosophy, and it's also religion, and it's also basically way of life. And so when we find ourselves, I think the message is here, when we find ourselves judging someone, as soon as I started saying sniffing flowers, I started to get itchy eyes. I feel like I got this yesterday during the live stream, that I all of a sudden started to get itchy eyes, and I felt like somebody had come in who had allergies of some sort, and I feel like I started imagining sniffing the flowers, and I feel like there's somebody who's going to be watching who's quite sensitive to that in terms of allergies, especially this time of year. Maybe we're just coming into September, but if you're finding this message at another time, that might be for you there whenever you get here. Religion is like way of life. I feel like what we're talking about, if you find yourself criticizing, let's not say judging, let's say criticizing somebody for keeping their head in the sand about something, for only focusing on a few things and not being able to see themselves in a certain position that we see them in. Well, rather than it being a criticism of the decisions they made, because they probably had to make some decisions, and yes, they could have made different decisions. That's the case for everybody. So let's humble ourselves to that's the case for everybody. Everybody has to choose what they focus on. Rather than criticizing their choices, there's an issue here or a situation where we can use that as an experience, like to learn about their way of life. That the truth of the matter is, what we have observed is somebody making the choices that they've made. And it was never possible for them to make all of the choices. And so rather than observing somebody making the wrong choices, what we're observing is somebody's way of life. This is basically who they are. They are the person who made those decisions. And they will experience the karma that they experience, which is, we say that like, oh, you'll get yours one day. Karma isn't always a bad thing. Actually, most of the time it's not. It's like actually like just cause and effect. We can understand that choices equal consequences, and consequences don't always have to be negative. They can be quite positive. Like, I could choose hopefully this week to record 17 readings and post them on YouTube, and then maybe there would be like a lot of donations that came out of those readings, and then that money would be able to filter back into the church here so that I could, offer some kind of a course or something like that here. That's just I just made that up. It's a viable consequence of doing readings online or something like that. Could be like that, so I could get excited about the consequences of my choices. It does appear here. Having said that, and I feel like I was being drawn to point to the humility that we kind of have to have in those moments when we're pointing at someone else and we're feeling tempted maybe to identify someone's choices as like, they're willfully ignorant of things. It's like their choices are, they're not our concern. We become the person. Anyway, I'm only getting this because I still have the last spread in mind, where this person is holding on to the tower and not paying too much attention to the state they're in and paying a lot of attention to the state that the other person is in. It's almost as if maybe there's this experience you've had at some point of pointing at someone else's choices and calling them willfully ignorant or focusing only on certain things and not the things they ought to be focusing on. When we start thinking of the things that they ought to be focusing on, there's something about us taking on this, walking down the road and smelling every single flower, that we're kind of spending our energy contemplating all the things that somebody could have done instead of what they did do. Could have decided instead of what they did decide. How they ought to have been. This is an interesting reading. Never a dull moment in the TLC Collective. What are we reading about? Let's get some stories about this. It's really interesting, I think about that. It does resonate for me in a way. Like, I don't think that this is anything to be hard on ourselves about. I think everybody is in this energy at one point or another. And at a certain point, too, we say that, like, think of the justice system. The justice system is built on telling people what they ought to have done instead of committed a crime or something. So there's that. How do we feel about that? Necessary evil, sometimes people say. Interesting. Maybe the devil card will show up. That's way too many cards. I'm not going to take that message. Maybe this deck is kind of... I did bring out this other deck too because I feel like these two decks are very similar, yet kind of different. I might go back to that one. I'm not sure. I feel like there is another message in there for this reading. I'll just grab as much as I can to keep the message going. That was kind of there. And there's the Fool. There it is, right there. The Fool card is the perfect card for that. It's the perfect card for that message about when we point at someone and say what they ought to have chosen or what they ought to have decided or what they ought to have done. what they ought to be doing instead of what they are doing. We're in Fool energy. The truth of the matter is, we all know it, it's all real, that we can't actually have confidence that we could have a handle on all the things that they could have done or chosen or focused on or thought about instead of what they did think about. So we're wandering into Fool territory, and we're about to wander off a cliff in this reading. So if you're resonating with this, there's a bit of a little bit of a wake up call being brought to you about pointing your finger, 3 fingers pointing back, that thing, pointing your finger at somebody and trying to tell them what they ought to be doing instead of what they're doing. Do you actually know all the options that person had? That's kind of the question. Colin had something to say about that. What do you think? He wants to come for another visit. This is going to be a long reading. I hope everybody's all right with a long reading. Colin's here for another Colin break. Do you want a theme song, Colin? I'll make it. He's really freaked out by all of that. As soon as that incense stops burning, I'm sure he'll come hang out. No, he's just passing through. That's what's happening. Yeah. The only problem is sometimes he steps on the mixing board and he presses the mute button. So I just got to make sure. Oh. Just like that. He just did it. He's like, oh, like this? Yes, Colin, like that. What's going on? Oh. There you go. He found his way down. There's a bit of a maze here. I got them a little bit of a... Oh, here, you know what? I'm just going to help him have a space to lay down. I think that's what he's asking me for. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that I had my stuff on your nap area. I'm sorry. There you go. I just made them a little nap area near the tarot table. It was... Now that Dirk's so brave to come up on the table, it was getting a bit ridiculous doing readings. There were 2 cat interruptions every reading. Having said that, we just had 2 cat interruptions. Okay. Back to the reading. $20. This deck calls this card Awakening. And generally this is card of like judgment. I touch this card and I can feel something significant, of course, like awakening is no small word. What I'm getting in the upright for collective energy, in the reverse for maybe the energy of what exists as that tower that you might feel like you're holding together with maybe some assumptions. This is a very strong message. And you know what? So obviously I'm not going to say that everybody has everybody who is interested in tarot is going to be committed to some kind of a religion or something. But the message that I got here, it was humble yourself before the judgment. And of course, in my mind, my mind immediately went to before the judgment of God or of a higher power. That this is really a message to see yourself as you are when you're talking about someone else. When you're talking about somebody else, this deck calls the fool the wanderer. You're just wandering around. And it's maybe the case, 9 of Cups, that whatever it is that you choose to see in someone else is a request. And that's exactly what you'll get. You'll get exactly what you want, and you'll forget that you asked for it like a goldfish. I can resonate with this. This is like, I feel like we all get into this sometimes, pointing our fingers. So the message that's coming out here is that it's not our job to judge other people. Really, it's not. Because who do we think we are? Even if we could live their entire life for them, we still wouldn't be able to smell every flower just from here to the end of the road for them. There is a big message here in this awakening card. Seven of Swords. This is exactly the message. What a harsh message. I wonder what it is. Maybe it's something that we need to hear. Sometimes it's that way. Sometimes we need to hear something harsh. And sometimes we try to offer that to someone else, right? And here I am doing a reading, and I know people are going to be looking at it, and I'm kind of like pointing, like, ah. Although this is collective, and so why don't I include myself in this very explicitly to start learning from this message right away? The Moon card. You've got to be kidding me. This is how I started the reading. Right? I mean, it's recorded. It's recording right now. We're going to see that. This is how I started the reading, was with the moon. What we don't know. Somebody who is not knowing something. It's kind of in the darkness. That's what the Moon card is about. And here we have the Six of Swords. We have Seven of Swords here. This is a very direct message, so it might just be for some people. But I'll say it in collective kind of way, just to learn from this message. Get comfortable expecting out of ourselves what we expected of others. If we're expecting someone else to be a certain way, that should be accompanied by, I guess the idea is threefold the amount of effort on our part to be that way ourselves. Colin is singing. He's got a lot to say. I think he wants to go to bed. So we'll finish up this message right here. This is beautiful. This is the energy of deception, particularly self-deception. It's the energy of deception in the face of something unknown, that we might stretch our assumptions sometimes to just so that we can feel like we know a little bit of something, just so that we can feel like we have a little bit more knowledge about another person or another situation. Here's what I'm going to say here. There's a Seven of Swords as like the deception energy. In this deck, this person is full aware that they're doing it. If you see the image, the expression on their face is like, yeah, so what do you want? What are you going to do about it? Wow. That took a while to come out. A little bit of stuttering there on my part. And it's almost as if, like, isn't this funny? It's like as if the unknown is kind of pointing to the person who's deceiving themselves. The unknown is saying, hey, what are you doing? You're deceiving yourself. And yeah, well, you're the unknown and you're the problem. So what are you going to do about it? At least I'm doing something about it. At least I'm doing something in the energy of Virgo. Exactly. So we probably you could probably just get this message from the first 2 minutes of the video. This has just been a big long reading to describe basically, I think, the thing that's at the beginning. And we're just getting kind of a confirmation that was the message, I think. Sometimes they come out this way. That's kind of neat. I want to just go to this Six of Swords here. The Six of Swords is connected to the Nine of Cups. The expression here changes the reading completely on this person's face when they're saying, well, at least I'm doing something. Sorry, the lighting's not so great, so you probably can't see it too well. I'm just getting this, it changes the whole message, this expression, this confidence. Because wait a minute. If we pointed our finger at somebody and that ended up being interpreted as a request to see that in that person. And so that's who they become to us, or a situation as well. I'm putting it as a person because there's always people depicted in the cards that are describing the situation. We're pointing our finger at someone and saying, you ought to have done something different than you did. That person becomes the person who didn't do the thing that they ought to have done. And we get exactly what we ask for. It's like our pointing finger is asking to see that. And that indeed is what we end up seeing. That's who that person becomes to us. There's a message here, okay, Six of Swords. There's a part of me that wants to say, well, of course this person abandoned the situation. Who wants to be judged by another person? Especially when they're already facing judgment from a higher power. Who do you think you are, basically? It's who do we think we are to put that kind of judgment? And they might be saying, who do you think you are? This is bullshit. I'm leaving. This yellow butterfly. You might be seeing yellow butterflies all over the place. If that's the case, then I feel like it's kind of a sign for you. There's just a moth. I think that's a moth. Anyway, there's a moth issue actually right now. Well, it's kind of over, but maybe there's been somebody who's had a moth issue. Maybe there's even people who live near me or something like that. The message is, wait a minute, okay? So of course they want to leave that behind. This is bull. I'm leaving. Wait a minute. Hold up. This is bull. This is not what you ought to be doing. I'm leaving. Hold on a minute. This expression is almost looking, it's a defeated expression. Well, at least I did something. And now all of a sudden I'm starting to realize this effort to hold things together has something to do with something totally different than this whole maybe even interaction of judging one another. The judging one another is just kind of like the conversation, even if it's just in our heads or something. This, it could have been a chariot. If it was a chariot, it was moving towards something else, a situation that had less judgment in it. But this is basically the card of abandoning. It's like, this is bull. I'm leaving. I can't deal with this. I'm leaving. This ought to be different. So there's a little bit of a philosophy going on here, a little bit of a philosophical kind of pondering. Chicken and an egg kind of thing. So as much as I was empathizing with the person who is being judged, I'm also going to say that this message probably extends to them as well. It's probably a message that's to be extended to both sides. I just have to point out the idea that the moon card here is with the wanderer, the fool. It's somebody who doesn't know what to do. Somebody who doesn't know what to do. So they just do something. And here's the real philosophy of the whole thing. It's like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to do something. And then when somebody points at us and says, well, you ought not have done that. You ought to have done nothing. It wasn't your place to do something. It wasn't your place to judge. Doing nothing is also doing something. We have to choose a road. If we choose the road where we do nothing about it, that's still a road. If we choose a road where we do something about it, that's this road. If we choose a road where we do something else about it, that's this road. There's no option to sit here holding on to the tower. I feel like we're being kind of guided to understand that sometimes we're sitting here holding a tower, assuming that we can carry on this way. We have to choose a direction. Where are we going? Who are we? What's our way of life? How do we travel down the road? Wow. I was expecting something at first. I saw the tower and little hints of relationships or, friendships or whatever. And I just kind of went, okay, we're going to do a love reading. But this is more of an inner philosophy type thing. Who are you? Not so much what road are you traveling down. It's what does that road say about who you are? Your choices tell everyone and yourself who you are. What is it to say you ought not judge others? Isn't that something? Except for in the case of judging the fact that somebody's judging others. Wow. This fell out like this. I'm not gonna take it just to know that there are bigger messages here, but I am kind of pressed for time, so I'm just gonna grab a quick kind of last card, Seven of Swords. Okay, so this is a little bit of a reassurance. At least you did something. So you might have been somebody who pointed at someone and judged them for what they chose to focus on. And you might be somebody who's kind of like holding on to something, hoping that there's going to be a chance to do something differently, or hoping that the other person is going to see the things that you feel they ought to have seen. That's kind of a tough situation to be in, because it definitely does lead us to remember that it's not our place to judge other people and all that stuff. But here's another thing. At least you did something. And that might be for your own personal philosophy, that it's not you. It's not you to sit back and do nothing about something like that. At least you tried. At least you tried. You did try. And so that's the message here for you today, for everybody here, for us as a collective. This expression just gets me. I want to be able to show it more clearly. Maybe I can, if I bring the candle here. There it is. Look at the expression. Wait, I'm not the world's best lighting technician. And the video quality is not too great with the current lighting. Well, I'll post a photo of this image on Discord if you want to go on there. I don't know what the word is for that expression on this person's face, but it's something that I can recognize as somebody. I said the word shit already, so I'll say it again. This is somebody who doesn't give a shit what you think about their choices, what they decided to do. At least they did something. And what are you going to do about it? That's maybe even a bit harsh because there's a little bit of a kind of fatigue going on. Like, it's more inviting. Like, are you coming to help or what? At least I did something. At least I'm doing something. What's that expression? I've got like a lot of those kind of gritty expressions and swear words going on. Piss or get off the pot. Are you in or are you out? Are you going to do something about it? If not, don't judge me. All right, that's it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll post the links. Hopefully I'll find the Discord link. I know there's an issue with it or something right now. I don't know what it is, but I'll post that if I can, and I'll post this photo for all of you who are on Discord already. I'll post a photo of his card so you can see this expression. This is generally the message for you today. Take care, of course, as always. It's time to think about what kind of sweater you want to wear. If you're watching this soon after I record it. Sweater season is among us. Why don't we share our sweaters? I'm going to post a photo of my favorite sweater. I don't know why, just more celebrate the fact. I love a nice sweater. So wrap yourself in a nice warm sweater if it gets cool out, and take care, and we'll see you soon. And thanks so much.